All right, Bob, it's time to play America's favorite game, Who's Adding NACS this week?
That's right, Bob. America loves things with America in the name. So NACS, or the North American Charging Standard, is an automatic fan favorite.
Yes, indeedy, Bob, but most people know it as the Tesla plug. But spiffing up the name and adding an acronym is definitely adding points to this conversion.
And speaking of conversion, Bob, remember that Ford kicked off this whole thing on May 25th when Ford's CEO, Jim Farley, announced that after 2 years of talks with Tesla, existing Ford customers will be able to charge a Tesla supercharger starting in next year using an adapter that Ford will supply.
You nailed it, Bob, and a week later, Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, made a similar announcement.
And oh boy, Bob, every week it seems like another auto manufacturer or charging company is jumping on the bandwagon.
And it better be a big bandwagon, Bob, because the jumping on hasn't let up.
No sir, Bob, and it's only growing with Rivian jumping on last week.
So, Bob, let's get to it. Who's adding NACS this week?
Well, Bob, let's start with the second largest EV fast charging network in the U.S.
Are you talking about Electrify America, Bob?
You are correct, Bob. The same company that was founded by Dieselgate money, because remember, Bob, VW was found guilty by the EPA of using defeat devices in its diesel cars in order to hide how dirty their cars were from federal regulators.
Right, now I remember, Bob. VW was forced to pay $2 billion over 10 years to build an EV charging network, which they call Electrify America.
And good strategy by VW there, Bob, using America right in the name. Electrify America has 800 fast charging locations in the U.S.
It's great, Bob, and EA says that they'll be adding NACS or Tesla plugs to all their existing and future chargers by 2025.
But it doesn't end there, Bob. ChargePoint, which claims to have the most charging stations in the US, now says they'll be offering Tesla plugs to their charging hosts later this year.
Yeah, ChargePoint are mostly level 2 chargers, Bob, and most ChargePoint chargers are owned by the site owner, so it'll be up to each owner to decide what they want to install.
You might want to consider NACS, you ChargePoint site owners.
But we're not done, Bob. Blink Charging, which also claims to be the biggest EV charging network with over 30,000 charging ports in 18 countries, now says they'll be adding NACS to their network as soon as October of this year.
But we're not done yet, Bob. Volvo Cars announced they have become the fourth automaker to sign an agreement with Tesla to join the supercharger network starting next year.
So expect to see some XC40s, XC60s, and C40s.
And don't forget Polestars, Bob. They're a subsidiary of Volvo, so Polestars are included in this agreement.
But it's not just car and EV charging companies jumping on the bandwagon, Bob.
It's not, Bob. What other companies are interested in charging standards?
How about SAE, Bob, or the Society of Automotive Engineers?
But SAE is the group that came up with the CCS charging standard, Bob.
I know, Bob. That's why I think it's safe to say that the CCS standard is almost certainly dead.
No, that's not dead, it's resting.
If not officially dead, Bob, I think it's safe to say that CCS is pining for the fjords.
Pining for the fjords?
Extra points for Monty Python references, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, Frank Menchaca from SAE says they'll come up with standards that will govern how plugs connect with charging stations, cybersecurity measures, charging speeds, and reliability requirements.
I'm sorry, Bob, but I fell asleep with my eyes open while you were talking, because that's just a face-saving measure. Tesla already did all that work when they released their 27-page standard last November.
But Menchaca did say NACS looks like it's poised to become really widely used. So in talking to all the stakeholders, we decided it needs to be standardized. Who knows if others will come on board, it could be the dominant way that people charge.
Well, Bob, that sure is the understatement of the year.
Because don't forget, Bob, it already is the biggest charging standard in North America. Well, that about wraps it up this week's game of Who's Adding NACS this week, Bob. But before we go, Volkswagen just announced that they're in talks with Tesla to join NACS.
So if you're keeping score, Bob, that's Electrify America, Blink, ChargePoint, Volvo, and SAE this week.
See you next week, Bob.
Not unless I see you first, Bob.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching Now You Know Clips. You can watch full episodes of Tesla Time News on Tuesdays and in-depths on Fridays. Just click the link down below and head over to the Now You Know channel.